This is your before and after story. Southeastern College can help you prepare for a secure and fulfilling career in the growing healthcare field. We offer a wide range of careers to choose from, so whether you want to be a medical assistant, medical billing and coding specialist, nurse, surgical technologist, or another healthcare career, we've got you covered. Become a vital part of a healthcare team and make a real difference. Southeastern College, your future is bright. Visit sec.edu to get started.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hour number 2, Live Bet Sunday. Marc Malusis and Will Hill with you right here on VSiN. The smorgasbord when you're looking at the baseball going on right now, Will. The Arizona Diamondbacks leading the Philadelphia Phillies 8-6 in Philadelphia, going to the bottom half of the ninth inning, 1 out for the Phillies in that bottom half of the ninth inning. So Philly up against Arizona. The Tampa Bay Rays still leading the Yankees 7-5. They're in the top half of the ninth inning. They have a man on with 2 outs. Middle of the seventh inning, the White Sox leading the Astros of 5-4. San Francisco Giants now leading the Rockies 2-1, Will. So if you're believing a little Rocky magic, they've actually put a run up on the scoreboard in the top half of the fifth inning. And they also have a man on trailing San Francisco on the road in the Bay Area. Webb on the mound for San Francisco, but they're still trailing 2-1, and they're in the top half of the fifth inning. The Detroit Tigers have jumped out on the Angels. They're leading 5-0 in the bottom of the third inning. The Reds and the Nationals, they're in the bottom half of the second inning. That game is tied up at 1, still 2 baseball games to go. The Mets and the Cardinals get going right around 6:16 Eastern time. The Mets with Tyler McGill on the mound, Palante on the mound for the St. Louis Cardinals. The Mets are a -152 favorite. The total in the game is sitting at 7.5, juice to the over at -112. And the Dodgers and Braves get going right around 7:11 Eastern time tonight. The Los Angeles Dodgers on the road in Atlanta. May and Elder, your starters. The Dodgers -136 favorite. The total in the game sitting at 9, juice to the over at -120.
Yeah, and just watching all these games at once here, trying to keep up with everything. There are some, and we talked about this earlier, there are some really, really bad teams in Major League Baseball. The Rockies, of course, lead the way and get all the attention, and rightfully so. The Angels, after a decent start, they're awful. The White Sox, the Marlins, there's about 4 or 5 teams that are just awful, atrocious, unwatchable. Use whatever you word. It is really imbalanced between the haves and the have-nots.
No question about it. And I do like you, and I'm going to trail you. I like the Mets to bounce back after losing the first game of the doubleheader in St. Louis. McGill's been good this year, Will, when you're looking at it. He has been. The St. Louis Cardinals are not one of those dreads of Major League Baseball, but probably not nearly as good as they were a couple years ago when you're looking at St. Louis. But I look at the Mets team, they rallied and battled back, gave them an opportunity. They fell 6-5 in the first game. I think McGill gives them a representable start in game number 2 in St. Louis, and I like him. I don't love the number at -152, but I do like the Mets to bounce back tonight in St. Louis and take the second game of the doubleheader.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So that's looks like a 6:15 Eastern start. So we don't play these. What are they called? The back-to-back doubleheaders. They don't give you the 2-for-1 anymore. They clear the building out and then get everyone back in. So there's a little bit of a gap here between games 1 and games 2. As it looks like Kyle Schwarber goes deep for the Phillies to cut that from an 8-6 game to an 8-7 game. But no, I'm with you. I think this is a good spot here for the Mets to bounce back.
8-7 game, bottom half of the ninth inning after the Schwarber bomb for the Philadelphia Phillies. They're still down a run, 8-7, and there are 2 outs. The Rays and Yankees are going to the bottom half of the ninth inning. The Yankees are trailing that one 7-5. If you think there's going to be a little bit of ninth inning magic for the New York Yankees, you're getting +600 for your money. We mentioned as far as the Giants and the Rockies, San Francisco leading the Colorado Rockies 2-1 right now, and they're in the top half of the fifth inning. We've got a Game 7 tonight down in Houston between the Rockets and the Golden State Warriors. We touched upon the game that'll get going, the series that'll get going about an hour from now in Cleveland, as the Cavaliers are an 8.5-point favorite over the Indiana Pacers. The total in that game is sitting at 229. Warriors right now, you're getting 2.5 on the road in Houston. The Rockets right now are -138 on the money line. Golden State is +118. The total in the game, Will, is sitting at 206.5. Anything tickle your fancy when you're looking at Game 7 tonight between Golden State and Houston?
I talk about these games sometimes, and Chiefs Bills in the AFC title game was one that comes to mind. This is a classic. If you get it wrong, you're going to feel like an idiot no matter what. And I remember the Chiefs Bills, like, man, am I really going to go against Mahomes at home in an AFC title game? But it felt like the Bills were better. This is the same thing where you're just going to feel dumb if you get the game wrong, because are you really going to go against Curry and Butler in a game 7? It doesn't feel right, but just from a basketball standpoint, the Rockets have some clear advantages in my mind. They're younger. They're physical. Now we're every other day. This last week and a half or so, I think the Warriors just look old and tired. And the Rockets, they're like a football team. They bang you around. Adams has given them a lift. They're home. The Warriors, again, they just look worn down here. So I think the Rockets win the game tonight. Again, it doesn't feel great going against Curry and going against Butler. Curry can certainly have one of his, 45-point vintage performances. Reminds me a little bit of remember that Kings-Warriors series a couple years ago? It looked like the Warriors, same thing. We're not as athletic, not as young as the Kings, and then Curry goes bananas in Game 7 and they win. I'm always afraid to bet against Curry. I'm afraid to bet against Butler. I understand the experience, and the Warriors have won a lot of road games in this run. A lot of road games in Houston too, backbreaking road games in Houston. 2019 when Durant got hurt, that 2018 Game 7 of the finals. They've won a lot of big games on the road in Houston. I just feel like Houston gets them. I feel like Houston's younger, more athletic, more physical. So I bet Houston on the money line. Don't feel great about it. Again, not going to feel, or we're going to sit here, midnight tonight and say, man, I really bet against Curry. I deserve to lose. But I do think the Rockets win. What do you think?
I like the Rockets as well. I liked them before the series started. I think the gut check victory was Game 5, and that was a daylight win where Steve Kerr was resting his starters in the fourth quarter, and then that got them built some confidence, got them ready for Game 6. That was a hell of a performance in Game 6 by the Houston Rockets on the road in Golden State. Now they're coming back home. And I would take the Rockets. I did yesterday laying the 3, and now they're a 2.5-point favorite. I would agree with you, Will, if you want to stay away from the spread and want to take Houston on the money line. If you believe in Golden State, though, well, then you're going to believe that Steph Curry has a big time game. So I'm going to give you some point totals, Will, for Curry, because you put the fear in saying Curry can go for 30 or 35 or 40, right? So I'm going to give you right now Steph Curry to score 30 or more points. He's plus 158. To score 35 or more points, he's plus 400. To score 40 or more points, he's 9-1. And Steph Curry right now to score 45 or more points, he's plus 2,000. Which one of those scenarios is most likely for the greatest outside shooter the sport's ever seen?
What'd you say the number was on 35 plus?
Plus 390.
It's not bad. That seems doable. Now, they've done a good job on him the last couple of days, and the whole issue with the thumb. And that was really kind of a unique junk defense they threw at him Friday night, where it was a zone, but it was almost like a box and one, and that really threw the Warriors off. Warriors could not hit a shot in the second, really in the fourth quarter. I think they missed like 14 out of 15 shots. So keep that in mind, but it's a Game 7. Curry, if they're going to go down, they're going to go down with the ship, and, Curry's going to get all the attempts he wants. So from that perspective, I know it's square to think, just bet the best player to go over. He's going to have a big game, but this might be one where they just say, you know what, Curry, go win it by yourself, take all the shots you want, and he just gets a ton of attempts. And even if, we like the Rockets to win, that might not be a bad scenario for Curry scoring points, because if the Rockets are winning, that means Golden State's trailing, trying to catch up, and Curry's just bombing away. So, and then you have the whole thing of, if the Warriors are winning, Curry can get some garbage points at the end with free throws. So that number at 35 plus is intriguing. Is anything there for you worth betting?
Yeah, I would go with the 35 plus. I would also go with made threes, one that, I dabbled in a little bit as well when looking at Steph Curry, because I think, if they're going to go down, and I think Golden State it's not going to go down without a fight, right? The Warriors are not going to, they're not going to do what the Clippers did last night in Denver. I'm getting right now on 7 made threes by Steph Curry. I'm getting 3-1. If I want to juice it out to 8 plus made threes, I'm getting plus 560, nearly 6-1. I know the thumb, and you mentioned about the defense that they threw at him. You're looking at a Golden State team, obviously long in the tooth. We get that, the experience. I don't like Golden State necessarily to win the game. I have a hard time thinking that Steph Curry's not going to go down without a fight. And however way they could figure out a way to get him some open looks, they will. If you think Golden State keeps this game close tonight and within striking distance in the fourth quarter, they can't do it without Steph Curry having a big-time offensive impact on the game. That's why I kind of like the individual props when you're looking at Steph Curry.
Yeah, and from a Golden State perspective, if Fred VanVleet is going to outplay Steph Curry or draw even with Steph Curry, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Just vintage throwback performances from VanVleet, who killed the Golden State in that 2019 finals, 6 years ago? Wow, 6 years ago now. Crazy. And Adams with obviously a big-time performance. They went to the hack Adams. Adams made enough of free throws to make him pay, got a ton of offensive rebounds. So this whole era of small ball, it is somewhat refreshing to see a team can just dominate the offensive glass and win that way. And I just think Golden State's got a major, major issue on the glass that is really hard to scheme your way around. Look, if you're just bigger, stronger, tougher than me, and I can't rebound against you, there's not that many schematic things I can do. It's hard to get off that other than just make a bunch of shots and try to make up the differential that way, because Houston obviously has a monster advantage on the glass, as Arizona and Philly are now tied heading to the 10th. So Philly, I believe, was down 2 runs, 2 out, nobody on. Schwarber homers, and they manufacture another run with a few base hits, 8-8 heading to extras.
That's crazy. Want to know where the money is really going? Unlike other sources, our betting splits come straight from Circa and DraftKings Sportsbooks, giving you the insight into where the sharp action is landing. Circa is known for taking big bets from professional bettors, while DraftKings provides a broader market perspective. That means you're getting the real action, not just public money, but the kind of wagers that move lines. See the percentage of bets versus the percentage of handle on every game across every major sport, helping you to make smarter, more informed bets. Get VSiN's exclusive betting splits for as little as $9.99 for your first month at vsin.com/subscribe. Coming up straight ahead, we're going to chat with Dan Dibley, radio host of 95.7 The Game, Bay Area Sports. Talk a little Warriors, talk a little Rockets. He's Will Hill. I'm Marc Malusis. It's Live Bet Sunday right here on VSiN.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Marc Malusis and Will Hill with you. It is Live Bet Sunday right here on VSiN. The Arizona Diamondbacks have taken a 9-8 lead with the Ghost Runner in the top half of the 10th inning. Still nobody out. Man on third now for Arizona after you saw the tremendous rally by the Phillies in the bottom half of the 9th inning to tie that game up at 8. Let's talk a little bit about Game 7. Will, you and I were just discussing it. Rockets, Warriors down in Houston. The Warriors are getting 2.5 on the road. And let's welcome aboard right now Dan Dibley, radio host, 95.7 The Game, Bay Area Sports, obviously the flagship home of Golden State Warrior basketball. Hey, Dan, Marc Malusis, Will Hill with you. Thanks for the time today.
Of course. It's do anything I can to keep myself busy until 5:30 Pacific time, because after Game 6, it's been just a stressful period out here in the Bay, hoping that we don't have a repeat of what, of course, happened against the Cavaliers in the NBA Finals when they were up 3-1.
Dan, when you look at this game, you ask Warrior fans, Warrior personnel, is it, we've been here and done that a million times. We've got Steph. We're going to be fine. We're going to win. And they've won a lot of backbreaking games in Houston. Or is it pessimism, man? This is a different animal and they just can't rebound with Houston. What's the vibe here around the Warriors?
It's pessimism. And, I put something out on Twitter after Game 6 basically saying, what do you think? What's your confidence level? And a lot of people are saying, oh, it's already over and I got no confidence in this and that. It's funny, though, but before Game 6, our station ran a poll on, how would you feel confidence-wise if the Warriors were to lose Game 6? And the majority of fans at that point were still confident. But then, like you said, the two big lineup and Steven Adams and Şengün, it's been a problem. And Fred VanVleet turning into Reggie Miller. If those things happen again tonight in Houston, well, then the Warriors are really going to be up against it.
Dan, I'm curious, how does it, if Golden State is victorious tonight in Houston, in your mind's eye, how does the game look? What's the style of the game?
Well, the style for the Warriors is going to have to be Steph Curry, who I saw a graphic today that he's number 4 all time in Game 7 scoring average. So if the Warriors are going to win this game, Steph has to be 30 plus, probably even 35 plus. Draymond Green cannot be careless with the basketball, and Jimmy Butler has got to get back to playoff Jimmy and make an imprint. This team goes as those three perform, and then beyond that, you do need your role players to be able to step up. But I look at the earlier games in this series where the Warriors were able to win a rock fight, so to speak. A game that only one team got to 100 points, or even, game 1, I think it was, neither team got to 100. So you just have to avoid an explosive night from Fred VanVleet and get your stars to carry their water, keep it close. And that's when I think the pedigree, the experience that should swing in Golden State's favor. If you get, tie game, 6 minutes to go, the Rockets and what we call the PF, the pucker factor, maybe things start to tighten up for a team that's never been through this.
Dan, the fun thing about Game 7s is everything is on the table, almost like in baseball when they bring the starters out of the bullpen. That being said, is there an adjustment Kerr can go to? Is there a move he has up his sleeve? I know Kuminga's been a lightning rod subject amongst Warriors fans. What do you think? How do you think Kerr plays this year in a Game 7?
Well, the traditional approach from Kerr is to lean heavily on the veterans. And so I think Quentin Post, who's had a great rookie year as a stretch 5, I think he misses out on some minutes tonight. And you probably are going to see Kevon Looney more than you have. And Kevon's had a really difficult time in this series because of not only the size of Houston, but the athleticism of that size. But Steve likes to lean on the vets. And so I think you're going to see a shortened rotation. And, GP2, Gary Payton II, he'll come off the bench. Kuminga's been out of the rotation, guys, except for the game that Jimmy Butler missed. Kuminga started, and he was just okay. So I think he goes away from Kuminga. He shortens the bench, and it's going to be GP2, a little bit of Looney, and, the Buddy Hield experience. He'll hit 4 straight threes and then dribble one off his foot out of bounds.
Dan, do you think how important is the start tonight, for Golden State on the road in Houston after what we saw in Games 5 and 6? Can you build upon a solid start for the Warriors? How important do you think the start is this evening for Golden State?
It's everything. And if you look at not only the series between these two teams, but all the games they've played this year, the team that is in front wins almost every time. The Warriors front run like no other team, and they're not necessarily built to come from behind, especially when you look at what Houston's done defensively, where, guys, let's be fair and tip the cap to the Rockets. They've really limited Steph Curry for the majority of these games. The zone has been so effective, and if other Warriors aren't hitting open shots, Golden State's in trouble. But even beyond that, they've been physical with Steph. They've been targeting the thumb. They've made the half-court looks that he's been getting very difficult. And so if the Warriors have to come from behind and Steph is not having a big night, they're in real trouble. But as I mentioned before, young team, Game 7, if the Rockets are having to chase the game and the Warriors can dictate a little bit of the pace and of the flow, that's the only way that Golden State's going to win this game.
Dan, I asked you earlier what the fans think, what people around the Warriors think. Let me ask you, what do you think? Who wins Game 7?
If I had to make a prediction, I think the safe prediction is you go with the Houston Rockets. And my heart, of course, is Golden State. I'm born and raised in the Bay, 50 some odd years. I've been a fan since the late 70s, and they were miserable. And we still showed up at Oracle, the old Oakland Arena. And then we had this dynastic run. So my emotions will get in the way, but I'm also very statistical oriented. And if you look at all of the teams that have blown 3-1 leads, 13 times it's happened. The team that wins Game 7, 2 of those were the neutral court of COVID. Denver did it back-to-back, as you remember. They came back from 3-1 down in 2020. And of the other 11 instances, 8 of those teams were Game 7 at home. So teams down 3-1, they get Game 7 at home. 8 of those instances have happened, and that's where the Houston Rockets obviously will be. And I do think that part of it, the statistical reality and the historical significance of what a 3-1 blown lead can be, that swings heavily in the Rockets' favor. But the one thing that I hold on to as a Warrior fan is this thing we call championship pedigree out here, where the Warriors have the experience. They've been through it. I think about Game 7 a couple of years ago when the Warriors went to Sacramento. Steph Curry put up 50, and they beat the Kings, only to go on to LA. And actually, they went home and they lost Game 1. So even if the Warriors do win tonight in Houston and they avoid the ignominy of blowing a 3-1 lead, you got to play Minnesota on Tuesday. And this has been a very taxing series. So even if the Warriors do win, and I give them more than a puncher's chance, they've got a really, really tall order going up against Minnesota on Tuesday.
Dan, do you expect a high-scoring affair? You mentioned if Golden State wins tonight, that Curry's going to have to go for 30 or 35 or more points. Anybody else from a point production standpoint that you're looking at that you think needs to have a big night if you're bullish on the Warriors this evening?
Yes, it's Pods. Brandon Podziemski, who is not yet a household name. He's in his second year. But if you look at the games, not only in this series, but throughout the latter part of the season, Pods can get hot. And he's got that wild hair, and he's got that funky, super slow Euro step move that he does. But one thing he can do is he can get hot from the three-point line. So if Pods can get, and I don't know what his individual over-under is, it's probably 9.5 or 10, I would guess. But if Pods gets into that 15, 16-point range and he becomes their third scorer, the Warriors have a great chance. The problem with the Warriors in this series, guys, is they have not had a consistent third scorer. It's been Steph and or Jimmy for the most part. And when Buddy had a big game, they were able to win. When Pods had that big game, I think that was in game 4, to put him up 3-1. And that was a real nail biter of a game. But to answer your question about the total, I like the under in this game if the Warriors are going to win. I don't think if Houston gets hot and the Warriors have to match them offensively, it sounds strange because Houston's not a great offensive team. But yeah, you look at the total there, 205.5. If it goes under, the Warriors win.
Last 30 seconds or so, does the winner of this series have a shot against Minnesota?
A shot, sure. But like I said, Game 1's Tuesday and Minnesota is chilling, and the Warriors are older and they're smaller. Minnesota's got 5 or 6 7-footers. So I think either one of these teams goes into Minnesota as the underdog. But then again, Warriors have all this championship experience. Minnesota really doesn't have that.
Dan Dibley. Dan, we appreciate the time tonight and enjoy Game 7 as best you can between the Warriors and the Rockets, all right?
It's impossible. I'm already sick to my stomach, guys.
Dan is a tremendous host. 95.7 The Game, the home of Warrior basketball out there in the Bay Area. We've got a lot more to get into. We've got a full baseball slate, games coming down to the wire. Game 7 in the NBA, which we just hit upon. Another series just getting going. Game 7 in the Stanley Cup playoffs as well. He's Will Hill. I'm Marc Malusis. This is Live Bet Sunday right here on VSiN.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Bottom half of the 10th inning. How about Arizona pushing 3 across in the top half of the 10th inning, leading the Philadelphia Phillies 11-8 after the 2-run bottom of the 9th inning by Philadelphia that forced extra innings. The Colorado Rockies right now, San Francisco Giants, they're in the bottom of the 6th. San Francisco home, leading Colorado 5-1. The Tigers out in front of the Angels, a 5-zip. They're in the top half of the 6th inning. The Washington Nationals and Cincinnati Reds, they're tied up at 1-1, bottom of the 4th inning. Cincinnati threatening 2 men on in that bottom half of the 4th inning with 1 out. 2 games have yet to get underway. The New York Mets, St. Louis Cardinals, 6:16 first pitch out in St. Louis. Second game of the double dip. McGill and Palante, the starters in that one. The Mets are a -154 favorite. And just after we get off the air, right around 7:11 Eastern time down in Atlanta, Elder May, your starters, it is Braves, Dodgers, and the Los Angeles Dodgers are a -136 favorite.
Yeah, and you mentioned Washington, Cincy. They just showed that game. I have it on in front of me. They showed the skies. It looks like it's going to absolutely pour. So I'm trying to see if they have any lines up on over-under pitcher strikeouts for these two starters. hits allowed, anything like that, an under might not be a bad play, especially if you can parlay the unders, because I'm not a weatherman, but based on the sky, I don't know how much longer they're going to be playing baseball. It looks like it's going to absolutely pour. We've had a lot of weather around the country, and they're just showing it again. Wind blowing, sky is just completely, gray, black, whatever it. It looks like a downpour is imminent there in Washington, Cincy.
I'm curious, when you look at some futures in Major League Baseball, anything when you're looking at the American League to make the playoffs. The Yankees right now are minus 475 to make the playoffs. The Seattle Mariners are minus 245. The Astros minus 145. Tigers minus 475. Anything when you're looking at a team that maybe has gotten off to a sluggish start that hits you. The Blue Jays are plus 210. Orioles are plus 215. Rays plus 265. Minnesota Twins are plus 260. Just to make the playoffs in the American League. Will anything there hit you?
The Orioles price is interesting. They have no pitching whatsoever. I like the everyday lineup is pretty good. And this was a team, 2-3 years ago, even last year, where they were almost OKC Thunder-like, where, wow, they're good now and they're going to be good forever. They got all these good players and prospects. They just can't keep their pitchers healthy. All these pitchers on the IL. That being said, could they crawl back, get some of these guys back, trade for some guys, and just have decent enough pitching? Morton's giving them nothing. Can they get decent enough pitching where they're a 6 seed at like 84 and 78? I guess that's possible. That's somewhat intriguing. Do you have a number in front of you on Boston? I would think Boston should be a playoff team with Crochet, with all their prospects. I know they lost Costas, but to me, Boston is a team I was high on coming into the season. I think Boston could be a playoff team.
Yeah, the Red Sox right now are minus 125. We'll get back to that here momentarily because we have another guest on the line. Tommy D, founder of the nextblog.com, SNY-TV, NBA scout. Let's talk a little bit about the Knicks and the Celtics series as it gets going. Tomorrow night in Beantown, Boston, the defending NBA champs are a minus 820 favorite. The Knicks are plus 570 in the series. Tommy joins us right now. Hey, Tommy, Marc Malusis and Will Hill with you. Thanks for the time tonight.
Guys, always a pleasure. Moose, great talking to you as always. In honor of your epic rant after the Derby yesterday, I'm wearing my Saratoga National golf shirt just for you. So really appreciate you having me on again.
No, you Tommy, got it. Tommy,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, Tommy, as we get into this series, it just looks like it's going to be tough for the Knicks. They got a lot of questions in terms of, Boston can throw bodies at Brunson. Boston has guys that can expose Brunson defensively. I'm looking at Boston probably winning a short series. I know they dominated the regular season, which doesn't always translate to postseason ball. But what is the path here for the Knicks to have success?
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of see it the other way. The regular season. Now, I don't see the Knicks winning, but I see a longer series with the Celtics winning in 7. I think the Knicks can go in and steal game 1. Couple of red flags that I look at. Anytime you hear hamstring in the preseason or postseason, that's a gigantic red flag for me. Drew Holiday, they did well. The Celtics did well to polish off the Magic in 5 games to give him a couple extra days, but hamstrings are very, very sketchy here, especially, coming back, having not played for about a week or so. So the Knicks have a chance to come in, sort of attack him off the dribble with Brunson. Holiday, to me, is the X factor, probably the league's best point of attack defender, and really makes that whole thing go along, obviously, with Tatum and Brown. When you factor that in, Porzingis' health is always an issue. And then, of course, Jaylen Brown, with the knee, the Magic really exposed him a lot in pick and roll. So I think the Knicks have a chance to go in kind of with house money game 1, make it a close game. We know Brunson's ability at the end of games, obviously being, the game's probably premier clutch player right now. So I think the Celtics can ultimately win it in 7, but I think it's going to be a long series.
What do you think when you're looking at game 1? You mentioned about, Tommy, that you think the Knicks can steal game 1 tomorrow night up in Boston. They're a heavy underdog. They're plus 300 on the money line. What leads you to believe that the Knicks can win tomorrow night?
Yeah, I think they go in there with some confidence. Certainly, Brunson's big shot and again, house money, right? Just not really having much of a chance during the regular season. They have a chance to go in and shock the world, with that first game. I think the Magic exposed the Celtics in that they were able to actually outshoot them from behind the arc, which was obviously the Celtics' strong suit throughout the regular season. And, of course, over the last couple of seasons, Magic, I think, averaged 34 three-pointers a game. The Celtics have been shooting it more efficiently, and certainly without Holiday, their production level, in total is going to go down. So to me, it's really dependent on two things. One, can they get OG Anunoby going downhill, specifically against Brown, if the matchup from the Celtics, from Coach Mazzulla, is to put Brown on Anunoby. I think there's an opportunity to expose that weakness in the knee there, and then play loose and free. Right, when the ball's moving with the Knicks, they are just they are a terrific offensive team. Their issues are on the defensive end. So if they can get out in transition, Moose, which we saw the other night. Big performance there in Game 6 out in Detroit, early, being able to get out and run. I think that's the big haymaker they can throw early tomorrow night in Boston. That's, force some misses, get out in transition, make some shots, start to, take the crowd out of the game, of course, and then try to make it a close game. And you got the best closer in the game. So I can see it playing out that way.
If this does end up being Boston winning a short series, what's the next move for the Knicks? It's one thing to go from bad to good in the NBA. Sometimes it's hard to go from good to great. Is Thibodeau in trouble? Can they make another trade? What do you think the Knicks do from here?
It's a great question. I mean, you heard the owner on the Brunson and Hart podcast during the year talk about how he thought the Towns move was sort of that final piece. I don't think that was the final piece. I think we've seen that thus far. Do they get another year to run it back if this is a short series? You have to see what kind of deals are out there. You've heard, names like Zion, names like, Giannis, of course. So, there could be opportunities to make a deal. I don't think the Knicks have a lot of flexibility, to be honest. And then when you think about the Celtics, also another red flag there is the Celtics could potentially be breaking up what they have here at the end of this year, maybe moving Brown, perhaps moving on from Holiday or Porzingis. So maybe the Knicks, stick together, with this roster for another year and make a run at it. It's going to be really hard to replace Tom Thibodeau, to be honest. I think getting through that Detroit series was big for his job security for next year. Any coach that comes in that's going to have to absorb Rick Brunson, who is obviously Jalen's father, probably not an ideal scenario unless you've got a really good relationship there. So you'd have to look into that. But I think the Detroit series saved Tibbs' job regardless if this is a short series or not.
Even if it's a short series. Tommy, who on the bench for the Knicks, if they are to make this a long series, how does that look? Because it's a short bench and Tibbs relies, in about 45 seconds here, it relies very much on his starters.
Yeah, Precious Achiuwa is a name that you haven't heard much here, certainly against Detroit. I think probably a good matchup against Al Horford. Campaign played well, but I don't think he's going to really be overly effective against the Celtics backcourt. Deuce McBride's got to come in and do a better job. They've got to allow Brunson to be off the ball a little more and have someone who's going to be able to create, get in the paint and kick out for those sort of corner threes and above the break threes. So those are a couple of names to watch. I wouldn't be surprised to see Achiuwa come in, help them get some stops with that second unit, get out in transition, and see if they can't get the ball moving.
Tommy D, founder of nextblog.com, SNY TV, NBA scout. Tommy, we appreciate the time today.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom.
You got it. And Will, if we get a Game 7 in this series, I'll sign up from the dotted line from a Knicks fan perspective. That would be absolutely fantastic. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I think that would be a stretch, but we'll have more time to talk about it on the other side, but it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll discuss a little bit more next. It's Live Bet Sunday. He's Will Hill. I'm Marc Malusis right here on VSiN.
This is Live Bet Sunday on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Updating you on the baseball scores right now. The San Francisco Giants leading the Colorado Rockies 5-1. They're in the middle of the seventh inning. The Detroit Tigers all over the Angels 8-0 They're going to the bottom of the 6th inning, and the Nationals and the Reds are tied up at 1, bottom of the 5th inning. Mets and Cardinals get underway about a half hour out in St. Louis. The Mets are a minus 156 favorite. The pitching matchup is McGill and Palante, who's going for the St. Louis Cardinals. And then the Dodgers and the Braves tonight, shortly after 7:10 Eastern time. May and Elder, your starters. The Dodgers are a minus 136 favorite. In about 15 minutes from now, we got NBA playoff action, Will, that gets going. Game 1 in the Eastern Conference, the semifinals. It's the Indiana Pacers on the road in Cleveland, taking on the Cavaliers. The Cavaliers are a heavy favorite when you're looking at the series, and tonight they're a heavy favorite as well. They're an 8.5-point favorite over the Indiana Pacers, who knocked off the Milwaukee Bucks, and you got some shenanigans late in that series, especially in the elimination game where they were able to come back in unbelievable fashion. In overtime, Halliburton put his hero cap on, or his hero cape on. And then you got the stuff with Halliburton's dad, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you had those kind of stuff so far in these NBA playoffs. Not necessarily that, but you've had a little bit of heat to some of these series. What do you expect tonight with Indiana in Cleveland, Game 1 out in Cleveland?
Yeah, and I was on the air live with Matt Humans doing VSiN primetime during that comeback, and I turned it off. I started watching baseball. There was other NBA games, there were other NHL games, and then 3 or 4 minutes later, because I turned it off right around like a 7-point differential, less than a minute left. Matt Humans goes, well, Indiana's within 1. I said, what do you mean they're within? They can't be within 1. They're down 7 with 30 seconds left at the free throw line. Just an all-time meltdown by Milwaukee. This series is interesting. I just think, and we talked about this a little earlier, these teams are very similar. They both play fast. They're both smallish. They both are really good on offense. I just fear from Indiana's standpoint that Cleveland does everything Indiana does everything Cleveland does, and that Cleveland is just a better version of Indiana. If you're going to pull an upset, let me see this, like college basketball, really in any sports, if you're going to beat a team that's better than you, you want to be able to give them fits in terms of the style. You want to be able to create mismatches. You don't want to just be a lesser version of the favorite. And I think Cleveland, look, 64-18 regular season. They're going to have home court. They're rested. I'm not cutting in line to lay the 8.5. Actually, if I had to take it or lay it, as much as I like Cleveland in the series, I would take the 8.5. But I do think Cleveland wins a relatively short series, toss up between 5 and 6. I'm more 5. You're more 6, but wouldn't be shocked if it's Cleveland in 6. I don't think it's 7. I think a sweep is dismissive, and I don't give Indiana much of a chance to win. I did just see this bet at DraftKings and actually bet it. Cleveland minus 1.5 games for the series. So Cleveland has to win the series, and it can't go 7. There's some juice. It's minus 170, but to me, that's a good bet. I think Cleveland wins, like I said, in 5 or 6. Where are you at with this series?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I like the Cavaliers. And listen, they're a minus 560 favorite to win the series. If you like the Indiana Pacers, you're getting plus 420. The betting markets would lead you to believe that the Pacers are closer to the Cavaliers than the Knicks are to the Boston Celtics, right? Based on the markets, right? And based on the market prices. When you look at this series specifically, I think you nailed it. I think, the Cavaliers are a better version of Indiana. I think the Cavaliers are better offensively, better defensively. Clearly, when you look at their efficiency, half-court offense, it's one of the most efficient offenses we've seen in the NBA in quite some time. Garland and Mitchell is a dynamic backcourt. We know that. I think for Indiana, if you expect this, and I think they can win a couple games. I like the Cavaliers to win this series in 6 games. I don't think Indiana can get it to a 7th game. Go on the experience from the Pacers a year ago. Halliburton at times has been a big game player. The anti-James Harden, what we saw last night for the Los Angeles Clippers on the road in Denver, scoring just 7 points, Will. And I think Indiana's got to play up and down. Very similar to when we were just talking with Tommy about the Knicks and Celtics. I think Indiana, if they're going to make Cleveland sweat in this series and take a couple games, they got to play in the open court and they've got to push the tempo, because if they don't, I don't think Indiana's defense is good enough in the half-court setting to deal with what Cleveland, and especially with their head coach Kenny Atkinson can do with their half-court offense, and with how good and how efficient Cleveland has been offensively.
So, and I agree with all that pretty much. The reason I went with ultimately, I think Cleveland at 5 is the way I'd go. I just see it as Cleveland gets the first 2 at home. They get the split in Indy, whether it's 3 or 4, and then they close it out in 5. If you like Cleveland in 6, what do you see this being? Like 2-2 after 4, then Cleveland wins 2? Or, how do you feel like the flow of this series goes?
That's interesting. I think this is a game. I think this is an instance where it's got to be. Well, it's got to be 2-2 after 4. And I think it's a case of where maybe Indiana has an opportunity to surprise in one of these first 2 games. I think game 1 is very telling in terms of how it looks tonight, as the odds has ticked down a little bit. The Cavaliers are now just an 8-point favorite over the Indiana Pacers. So maybe bettors are thinking along your lines, Will, where you're thinking that the number is a little bit too large with the game. That I think tonight you'll learn a lot. The Cavaliers are coming off a series in which they just, beat down the Miami Heat. And made it look like made it look like high school kids taking on kindergartners. It really did. So can Indiana keep one of these 2 games close? Can Indiana build a little confidence early on in this series? I think if it's 2-0 going back to Indiana, then I think you're more than likely. I think Indiana will save face, win a game at home. It'll come back to Cleveland down 3-1, and the Pacers will get eliminated in 5 games. I think that's the way that if it's 3-1, it's got to be 2-2 after 4 games. How does it look? Right. Well, if I'm thinking that, I don't think Indiana's winning the 2 games at home. I think they're getting a split in Cleveland.
What do you have a feel here, either taking or laying the 8.5?
I would actually take the 8 tonight. I'm with you, Will. Yeah. Like, I would not, if you're asking me, do I love it? I don't. Because I'm a little bit more, especially early on, second round playoffs, a little kind of a wait and see approach for me to get a feel. I think there should be some like in-game opportunities that could present itself. But if you mentioned it to where, like, if I had to make a play, I'd rather take it than lay it tonight. I don't necessarily feel all that confident where I'm saying to myself, well, I'm going to feel good. Cavaliers coming off the series against Miami. I'll lay the 8 against Indiana. I want to kind of take a wait and see approach, but I'd rather take the 8 points or 8.5 points than lay the 8.5.
If we get the series we all expect, Cavs, Celtics, where do you lean? I've been Celtics all year. I'd still, I guess, pick the Celtics if I had to, but I'm nowhere near as confident as I was, say, like a month or so ago. Where do you come down if that is ultimately the series?
I'm going to take the Cavaliers. I really am. Like, I'm an Atkinson guy. Like, and I understand Boston, and Tommy mentioned a good point about Holiday dealing with that hamstring, which is always tricky at this time of the year when we're getting to the NBA playoffs. I think it'd be a wonderful series. I think it'd probably be a 7-game series. I think it'll be fun. I don't know if it'd light up America because it's the Cavaliers, but I think I'm going to root for the Cavaliers. I don't think you have the winning streaks that you do over the course of the NBA regular season if you're not a team of great quality. You mentioned the record during the course of the regular season. I think they've taken great pride of not many people believing in them, thinking that it's still going to end up being the Celtics year and them getting through the Eastern Conference again back to the NBA Finals. I would lead Cavaliers in that series. I think it'll be a long series. I think it's 6, potentially 7 games. And I think it probably ends up going the distance, but I would take the Cavaliers. How about you?
Yeah, I would ultimately pick Celtics in 7, which is dicey because they don't have home court. And that means winning the game 7 on the road, which, as we know, is not easy. But so maybe they close it out in 6, but I think Celtics in a long series. But I'm at the point where I wouldn't be surprised if the Cavs beat them, and getting plus money on the Cavs, which I think you would get if that's the series, would certainly be intriguing, or taking the Cavs plus a 1.5 games, even if you have to lay some juice. So we are getting word, I believe, that Garland is out for this game, which that toe, I guess it was a toe injury that looked pretty bad when he jammed it. So that is something that is obviously, that's someone who matters. Now, Cleveland has a lot of depth. They've got a good bench, but losing Garland does matter.
No doubt. Want to bet smarter, not louder. That's fascinating injury news. We'll get into them a little bit more after the break. Check out the Sharp Plays at sharpplays.com, where real bettors go to get ahead. Most of the betting world, it's just noise. Chasing's team copying picks, recycling the same old value plays. They're not sharp. They're just parrots. The Sharp Plays is the source they're echoing. Since 2011, it's been locked in with what the real pros are betting. Elite group, Sharp Money, the kind that actually moves the market. When the Sharp Plays jump on a side, the line reacts every time. With insider info and powerful AI tools, you're not guessing, you're getting ahead. Sign up for free betting reports, real-time alerts, and next-level intel via email or on X. And don't take anyone's word for it. Check out the receipts. Full betting logs are live on the site, so why follow the crowd when you could lead it? Visit sharpplays.com. Respected, watched, and feared. That's the Sharp Plays. He's Will Hill. I'm Marc Malusis. It's Live Bet Sunday right here on VSiN.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.